Welcome to The Nation. I'm your host, Danial Rahman. Today we're exploring Canada-Malaysia's trade relations and beyond. From the roots of commerce to the branches of future collaboration spanning economics, culture, communities, and of course, the Indo-Pacific strategy. Joining me at Wisma Bernama today is Canada's Minister of Export Promotion, International Trade and Economic Development, the Honourable Mary Ng. Minister, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Daniel, and I'm looking forward to having this conversation with you and to all of Malaysia. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, and welcome to Malaysia. I've been made to understand it's your first time here.
It is, and it won't be the last, but this is the first, and it's exciting so far.
Brilliant, and we look forward to it. Minister, allow me to start by asking, so you're currently on a Team Canada trade mission to Malaysia and to Vietnam. Considering Malaysia is one of Canada's largest bilateral trading partners in the ASEAN region, I think we're only second to Vietnam, with trade up from last year. Can you share your insights about what drives this robust trade relationship and how do you see it evolving?
Well, thank you so much. It is very exciting to be here, and I am leading a Canadian delegation of businesses. And what's telling, I think, are the number of businesses and the number of people who are here. We've got about 130 businesses made up of 270 people. So they are here in Malaysia because they're interested across a number of sectors. But they're here in Malaysia because they see the opportunities for business growth. Some are already here and they're looking to expand. Others are looking to get into this market. And it's very exciting across a number of sectors. And I think part of the reason is that Canada and Malaysia are partners in the CPTPP. So we already have a trade agreement. And when you look at the numbers of that trade agreement and the bilateral trading relationship between Canada and Malaysia, since 2018, the trade between Canada and Malaysia has increased by 25%.
Wow.
And last year in 2022 alone, it is also up 17%, which means that so when I look at those numbers, it's not just me. These companies are looking at these numbers, but they are seeing this as a dynamic region, a dynamic place to do business, like I said, to either expand or to increase their presence or put their first presence here in Malaysia. So there's a lot of enthusiasm.
Yeah, so that's a very big delegation that you're leading here. And as you said, 25% in the last 6 years thereabouts is quite big. And you're right, so there's a lot of potential. So on that, the trade mission, I'm made to understand, focuses where Canada has a huge competitive advantage, such as aerospace and defense. Now, and agriculture, clean energies, and life sciences, to name a few. Now, how were these areas of focus chosen for the Malaysian segment, and what areas or what kind of opportunities do these present to Malaysia?
So the way that we choose companies to come to a country, in this case in Malaysia, as part of the trade mission, is really by also working with our host country. We are, as I said, trading partners already through the CPTPP, and if you look at the new industrial master plan that Malaysia has put forward, you really are able to see Canada in there, and you see the kinds of companies that Canadians are looking to deepen their presence or grow their presence here in Malaysia. Food security is one area. So, and Canada has, throughout our history, has been strong in agriculture and agri-foods. There's also a dynamic Muslim population in Canada, and therefore Halal food and the mutual recognition we already have with Halal, which Malaysia has such strength in being sort of among the leaders in the world there. That is a really dynamic sector. So of course we've got many companies in that space here on the food security side. We already export a lot of fertilizer and potash to to Malaysia. Another area, if you look at energy security, here we've got a number of companies in this space. But Minister Zafrul and I, for example, talked about the opportunities for hydrogen or for carbon capture and storage. A couple of areas where Canada is really strong in. But look no further than a company like Petronas, who is in Canada and who already has a 25% stake in LNG. This is going to be Canada exporting LNG not only to Malaysia, but in fact to the region. Another area is the transition or the building of a green economy. I've got many clean tech companies that are here on this mission. Companies who are also part of circularity, which is, I think, something that Malaysia is finding importance. And then maybe a final area is in the area of digital and ICT. I'm going to be visiting BlackBerry tomorrow, a great Canadian company, and that's working with Malaysia on cybersecurity. But there are many Canadian companies, I mean, you know, in AI, quantum, but in that digital sphere, which I think is really important to Malaysia, but also important to Canada. So, so the match, if you will, is there because there are Canadian companies in those spaces that where they see opportunities here, and where Malaysia, I think, also see opportunities for those partnerships because there is that synergy between Canada and Malaysia. So, so I think, you know, I always think as the minister, it's one thing to want to do a trade mission. It's another thing where businesses want to be a part of a business delegation because they see the opportunities, the commercial opportunities, the trade and investment opportunities themselves. And that's what I'm seeing here as part of this mission.
And I must say, your passion and vigor for bringing the trade community along and exposing both countries to greater opportunities is something that's definitely quite nice to see. And I was watching on social media your video where you were inviting companies to come along. So I thought that was actually quite a nice touch. Now, what are you excited for now that you're here for about 2.5 days that you'll be doing in the next day or two?
Well, I'm excited. Tomorrow I'll actually do a number of visits so I can see some of the Canadian capabilities here at work. So I'll get a chance to visit Petronas so I can see our, you know, meet with our partner. I'll see the BlackBerry Cybersecurity Center. That is really great. But what I'm really excited about is to see those business-to-business connections between the companies and their partners, potential investors here in, you know, potential customers here in Malaysia. I already have met with the Canadian companies, you know, at a launch event and at a couple of launch events, and the energy is really there. And whether it's large companies like Manulife or Sun Life or BlackBerry, CAE, right? I mean, Visa, Celestica, these are all Canadian companies that already have a presence here in Malaysia. And what Canadian companies are really terrific at is leading the way with other Canadian companies. So I think to have as many companies that are here, many of whom are also small and medium-sized businesses, but also women entrepreneurs in the number of sectors that are here. What I'm excited about is to see the prospects and their prospects. I mean, for me as the trade minister, what makes a mission successful? It's because it works for the business, right? They're seeing the commercial opportunities. They're making the contacts. They're understanding this market a lot better. And then they're making the decision to actually come into this market. So I'm excited to see that. Well, I'm already seeing that activity, but I'm much more excited to see how those will, you know, how that activity will yield into, which I hope will be good commercial relationships. And, you know, I always say when businesses succeed, if Canadian businesses are succeeding, it means that they're growing. When they grow, it means that they're hiring more people. It means jobs are created. When jobs are created, then back home, for sure, it's good for communities. But I would also say the same thing exists here for Malaysia as well. So, so I really think that this partnership and this collaboration, it really is the businesses as part of this trade mission. But it really is also, it speaks to the Canada-Malaysia bilateral relationship. We've been friends for 67 years. And so we have a wonderful foundation to build from.
You read my mind. I was just going to say, so 67 years, and as you said, trade has been going up over the last couple of years, yet you still see so much enthusiasm with over 100 companies wanting to come in and explore. So in that sense, Malaysia is both a known but also a little bit unknown entity, and that's what this trade mission is about. Now, of course, this trade mission is also therefore part of a bigger strategy, which is the Indo-Pacific strategy, which is, I'm made to understand, just a little bit over a year old since it was launched now. And the strategy emphasizes the region's, you know, economic dynamism. Everybody talks about how it now is the time for ASEAN and all that. How critical is this strategy in shaping Canada's future economic security and diplomatic engagements in the region?
Well, it's very important. You know, the Indo-Pacific strategy is also financed by a $2.3 billion investment by the Canadian government in the Indo-Pacific strategy.
For how long is that?
5 years.
Okay.
And so that's the first 5 years. I expect this strategy to go longer, much longer. But you know, Canada, for example, right now is at the negotiating table with ASEAN. So and my negotiators, the Team Canada negotiators, were just here in Kuala Lumpur just a few weeks ago, doing the 7th round with ASEAN. Malaysia plays an important role there because Malaysia is Canada's country coordinator. And has been very helpful. So whether it is negotiating a free trade agreement with the ASEAN countries, some of those countries already are part of CPTPP. So this will cover others who are not. But deepening that relationship here in this region is very important because we know that this region is among the fastest growing in the world. And what we're looking for in this relationship are resilient supply chain partners. In all the things that I talked about earlier, whether it is food security, energy security, digital partnerships, collaborating and partnering so that we can fight climate change while building a green economy in here in the Indo-Pacific, but also in Canada. All of that speaks to the importance for Canada of why deepening and strengthening our presence here in the region is that important to Canada.
Yeah. Minister, thank you for those thoughts, and we will continue in a moment. But for now, we're going to take a short commercial break, and we'll be back right after this. Welcome back to The Nation, where we're discussing Canada and Malaysia's trade relations and beyond with Minister Ng. Now, allow me to continue. Earlier, you talked about the importance of the Indo-Pacific strategy as about creating a presence. And in that presence, you were talking about the ASEAN negotiations, which are currently ongoing. Speaking of which, last year you attended the ASEAN Economic Ministers Canada consultation that's happening in Indonesia. And now with the trade mission to Malaysia and Vietnam, and soon the Philippines, I made to understand South Korea coming up soon. How does Canada view its relationship with ASEAN, and what would you say are your top 3 priorities in engaging with this bloc?
Well, our relationship with ASEAN is very important, and it's really terrific that we are negotiating a free trade agreement. Canada has been elevated to a strategic partner status with the ASEAN. Another important milestone of this relationship, ASEAN centrality is something that Canada absolutely respects, and I think on the trade side, it really is about creating an architecture in a free trade agreement that gives us sort of the rules that will enable our countries, Canada and the member state countries of the ASEAN, to trade, to do more together. But it isn't just just trade for trade's sake. It is also to advance those people-to-people relationships. Canada's perspective about trade is how we do trade, which is making sure that our trade agreements actually contemplate opportunities that when we trade, it benefits to everyone in our society. So it's about making sure that when we're trading, that small and medium-sized businesses get an opportunity to trade. Those that have been often underrepresented in our economies, whether it's women entrepreneurs or youth entrepreneurs, indigenous entrepreneurs, that they are also very much a part of international trade. So that inclusive trade is really important, to Canada. And I think it is. In Canada, we have a saying where we say the environment and the economy go hand in hand. So creating a green economy, fighting climate change, which we know have an impact on all of our economies. We cannot ignore climate change, but how we build economies and how we utilize the private sector, how private sector and those businesses, whether it's clean technologies, whether it is hydrogen, whether it is companies who are decarbonizing cement, which we have a company here in the region that is doing that in Carbon Cure. So building big
decarbonizing cement.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
So infrastructure projects that uses green cement, essentially a Canadian technology, and then using sort of the technologies that are there and available that Canada can input into, but Malaysian companies can, or others in the ASEAN. So there are quite a bit of synergies between Canada and ASEAN, but really the idea of ASEAN centrality and our ability to to trade in a way underscored by by a set of rules that allow us to do this in a rules-based way is what we're looking forward to deepening our relationship and our trade relationship for sure.
Yeah. Of course, out there we can also see there are some trade tensions going out there, US, China, the war in Ukraine that's disrupting supply chains. Now, how does the Indo-Pacific strategy or what you're doing with Team Canada contribute to easing what we see happening out there? Because there's obviously a difference between the politics as well as the trade element, because it's about also the people on the ground and the economics that's generated from it.
Mm-hmm. I think it's about building economic resiliency. We saw that coming out of the pandemic, about needing to have reliable supply chain partners, having partners where we're working under a rules framework, a trade framework that is well understood by our businesses. Businesses will say to me often, we want to know the rules, we want predictability, because it's in that circumstance that they can then make investment decisions and make those long-term decisions that really benefit our economies and their respective companies. So I think that by doing this work together with Malaysia, but also within the ASEAN and as part of the Indo-Pacific, it is about creating greater resiliency for our supply chains. And to diversify that in a way under a rules-based structure, which is important, and it's something that is common between ASEAN, Malaysia, certainly within the ASEAN, and Canada.
Right. And how do you see this enhancing the competitive landscape that we see here? Because not just Canada, but recently I had a conversation, the European Union also has an Indo-Pacific strategy. So suddenly we are kind of like, everybody's looking at us or wanting to give us flowers and like, oh, that's really nice. So yeah, and how do you see then Canada? Of course, geographically, Canada is a little bit further away, but that's where global supply chains matter. So what are your thoughts then on making the competitive space more vibrant?
So I think Canada provides this as a sort of competitive environment for countries like Malaysia or others in the ASEAN to do trade and business with us. Canada today has access to about 65% of the world's economy through our free trade agreements existing. So many companies will come to Canada to access the North American market, for example, to our trading partner to the south, like the United States. We have a very robust trading agreement and relationship with Canada, United States, and Mexico. Canada also has a trading relationship with CETA. So you can imagine that that if you think about that resilient supply chain or value chain, today the world is that global. Canada is a good partner in that respect as well. We also, Canada and Malaysia already are part of the CPTPP, and even, additional agreements being done here in the ASEAN. So I think Canada, with our very strong FTAs and our relationships globally as a trading country. I mean, 1 out of 6 jobs in Canada is related to trade. 2/3 of our economy is related to trade.
Huge,
we are we're 40 million people, but we are but we're the 10th largest economy in the world. And I think earlier when I talked about the companies that are here and the synergies that they see in collaborating with Malaysia in the different sectors, I think that puts us in a very good position where the two of us could be working together in those competitive value chains or supply chains. And it is about resiliency, and it is about advancing resiliency and trade under a rules-based structure that I think can work, that works best when we can work in that kind of a structure.
Thanks for that. And when you mentioned Canada as the world's 10th strongest economy, it also brought me to our conversation earlier where we talked about education. And that was an area which you're very familiar with, myself too. Malaysia, for example, we've got institutions offering the Canadian International Matriculation Program. Though interestingly, when I looked at latest numbers, the number of Malaysians going to Canada has declined a little bit, but that could also be just post-COVID blues, right? On that, the Global Talent Competitiveness Index ranks 134 countries, and I found that Canada is top 10% at 13, so congratulations. My question is, having been with the Ontario Education Ministry, a university, what are your thoughts then on joint talent development or even educational exchange? And I understand it from a trade perspective because a lot of success is also driven by the talent within the supply chain, within all these new industries, the innovative space.
It's very important. I mean, every organization and every company will tell you that success starts and ends with its people, and therefore skills and talent is really, really important. We have, an education program, an exchange program through Canada's ASEAN work or ASEAN. Work plan. It's actually also a part of our Indo-Pacific strategy. So we are looking to strengthen that even more. And I think what is exciting about trade missions like this, there's a good contingent of academic partners that's also a part of this trade mission. And I think this is an area where we need to keep continuing to build. I meet a lot of people on these trade missions. But with my trading partners, and often is the case, people will say that they trace a connection back to Canada through the educational experience. Nice. And I think that we should continue. Canada is a very diverse country. Like tonight, for example, I'm going to be hosting an iftar.
Wonderful.
We are here in, during the month of Ramadan. So Ramadan Mubarak.
Thank you. Thank you.
But I'm going to be hosting an iftar. And why do I say that? I say that because Canada is a very diverse country. I say that we are the best to trade around the world because we all come from around the world and we are in Canada. Diversity is a fact in Canada. Inclusion is a choice, and we choose that in Canada. And I think that is a strength. But that strength ultimately goes back to the strength of our people, and there are many Malaysians who are in Canada. I think there are many people who are from the ASEAN countries and economies that are in Canada. They're our best bridge builders, and education and how our diaspora is able to work and through business and through trade is also a real advantage. But it really does speak to that need to continue to develop those collaborations and those partnerships, and it is our people.
Yeah. I really like that. Diversity is a fact, inclusion is a choice. And as you know, with 40 million Canadians, we've got about 33 million Malaysians, and diversity is something, or unity in diversity is something that is so very important to us. And your thoughts about how talent becomes a key block within the larger Indo-Pacific strategy is certainly very pertinent to us as well. Now, Minister, I'd like to ask, aside from the areas that you've mentioned, are there other areas that you might be excited about, or that your ministry might be discussing about potentially in the future, where you can add, whether it's into the BTPP or whether it's into ASEAN FTA, or what are the kind of areas that you're looking at that excite you, but also you feel would be very pertinent for countries within ASEAN to jump on?
Well, maybe I'll answer the question this way. I have spent a lot of time in this region as the Trade Minister for Canada. It is a growing and dynamic region, and because of the number of times that I've spent here in the region over the last couple of years, post-COVID, I find each visit a real learning experience to really understand where those synergies are. And, I think I've probably been in the region, like 25 times already in this period. And we've deepened our presence here. And the way to answer the question is that having a greater Canadian presence, particularly through the Indo-Pacific strategy and our commitment to the ASEAN, really will help us support and surface up those areas where those synergies and those opportunities exist. Governments don't do the business, but we certainly can create the conditions that enable our businesses and our investors to partner a lot better. And that's what I see the work is. So, as part of the Indo-Pacific strategy, Canada, we appointed our first ever Indo-Pacific trade representative. So it's a senior official that is based here in the region, actually out of Jakarta, that we have appointed. We're opening up a Canadian trade gateway. here for the region. We also have an agri-food and agriculture office that we also just opened here a little over a month ago. The Agriculture Minister for Canada was just here in the region. He was here in Malaysia as well. So having a stronger footprint by Team Canada, including the Government of Canada and the supportive parts like Export Development Canada, which is our export financing arm, really enables us to support those relationships, the Canadian relationships that wish to come into the region. But I always talk about a trade gateway as being a door, but that it goes both ways. For Canada to learn about where those opportunities are, but also for the region to learn about the opportunities with Canada. So I'm very excited about what we are doing here, and I'm really seeing it, firsthand, whether it's, attending APEC together with our colleagues here in the region, or ASEAN, or just being, good partners at the WTO or here through CPTPP. There are many multilateral but also bilateral opportunities that Canada is seizing upon to support our businesses, our civil society, to partner and to do that work here bilaterally with Malaysia, but also in the greater region.
Yep. Minister Ng, thank you very much for your response. So dynamism, relationships, gateway, it's been truly an exciting conversation. For those of you at home, thank you for tuning in with us on The Nation. We hope you enjoyed the conversation as much as I did. Until next time, see you again. Take care.